This is GRL Raw, the podcast where the GRL team tells you why they're different. Who the hell are they? Why should you want them fighting for you? The industry leader in law with over 180 years of combined experience. This team is here to shed light on crucial topics in law to keep you aware and informed, because it comes back to the primary point. We give a damn.
Good morning. Welcome to episode 6 of GRL Raw. I'm your host, Bobby Raykemper, and today I'm joined with none other than Scott, no nickname Michels. You can say something.
Say something.
All right, there we go. We're going to have hopefully a fun discussion about hunting, firearms, because it's getting to be about that time in the fall where people are starting to get that trigger finger going out and shooting things, right?
Yep. Getting close.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Well, you should be, because I don't think we see you much in the fall. You're always out sitting in a tree stand or under a tree calling birds, right?
Deer, turkey, if I get to go out west, hunt elk, bear, stuff like that, yeah.
Okay. So you are all knowing, all knowledgeable when it comes to hunting, and importantly, we're going to do a little bit about firearm safety and some firearm rights as well in this episode. We'll follow up in more detail later on a different episode with that, but that's kind of directly in your wheelhouse, is it not?
I would not say I'm all-knowing, but I try to keep up on the hunting regs and at least here in Iowa and then whatever other states I go to.
That's such a lawyer answer. We'll call you all-knowing until proven otherwise, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Unfortunately, we don't have a nickname to explain or discuss yet for you, correct?
Correct.
I personally like Fudd from Elmer Fudd. He's running around, kill the rabbit, kill the rabbit. I mean,
I've killed rabbits, but not big on the Fudd nickname.
Well, we'll find one eventually and then come back to it. We got to do an update real quick as far as what's been going on around the office. I think one of the bigger ones is MC, our assistant, MC Kayla, decided that she's pregnant. Not decided, she found out she's pregnant. She revealed it and had fun with that.
I think it was a conscious decision to do it, but yeah.
We'll save that discussion for another day. But so that's big news. We got one back, and we're going to be losing one again here. I don't know how many months, but a few, and we're not going to be ready for it. But we'll live and learn. And then the second one could have led with this, but we had to give Michaela her due on being due. Big win. Your case. It was your case. You brought it in. We worked it up. We tried the case. Huge NFG out of Hamilton County, right?
Yep.
Why don't you give us a nutshell kind of explanation of that case?
Well, it was a sex abuse second. The allegations were from 20 years ago.
How is that not an issue with we don't need to get into the details, but that's not a statute of limitations issue?
No, the legislature in their infinite wisdom decided that if a person under the 18 has been sexually assaulted, that there is no statute of limitations for those actions on the criminal side.
Whether they have been or claim to be.
Correct.
Yeah. And so it's an old case 20 years ago. Guys, so sex second, that's Class B felony. He's looking mandatory 25 years cuffed and stuff that the verdict comes back adverse to him.
Yep, having to serve 70%, so 17 and a half years before he could be paroled. And registry for the rest of his life, which who knows how long that would be after he gets released, but
it was a stressful week for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
stressful couple weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other kind of big things with that, kind of the irony of that case is the assistant county attorney actually dismissed the case like 2 years ago, or tried to anyway. Mm-hmm. And his boss took back or withdrew the dismissal, and then ended up handing it off to Attorney General's office, And then we had a couple of different attorney generals on it, or assistant attorney generals on it.
His boss, the head county attorney, who was also happened to be connected and friends with the father of the complaining witness in that case.
Yep.
Sordid stuff. But thankfully, jury did the right thing. Came back NFG, big not
In an
guilty.
hour.
In an hour. That's for a week-long trial. That's a fast verdict. That's a fast verdict. Awesome job with that. Lindholm got an NFG on an OWI down in Page County, and I think Corey and Sydney got over $1 million settlement on a wrongful death case out of a car accident. So things have been popping and cracking.
Yeah, and just recently, another one out of Hamilton County had a guy charged with assault with the intent to commit sex abuse. We got that amended down to a disorderly conduct, so no registry for that. A good result for the client was happy.
That's a huge result.
Yeah.
It should kiss you, give you a nickname.
Yeah.
We'll
stick with Scott.
Yeah. Well, okay. Speaking of Scott, we're going to take a quick break, cut to a commercial, learn more about Scott, no nickname Michels. And when we come back, we'll get to the meat of hunting and firearm safety.
Attorney Scott Michels is a graduate of Drake Law School and has practiced law with GRL since 2007. Scott defends clients facing all manner of state criminal charges, specializing in drunk driving defense and sex offender registry modification. Scott represents injured persons in civil personal injury cases and workers' compensation claims. He also handles estate planning and probate matters. Outside of the office, Scott prefers spending time with his family and is an avid outdoorsman who enjoys hunting, fishing, and camping.
Welcome back. What your little bio video didn't talk about was the fact that you have a history of being almost naked on stages. Do you not?
That would be accurate. Am I getting cross-examined here?
Yeah. Bodybuilding.
Yeah.
was a former hobby of yours before you went all in on hunting. So, I mean, we could come up with a nickname. I mean, beefcake, meat, something to do with muscles, but then also that ties in with hunting.
I'll pass.
See, you don't get to pick your own nickname.
That's right.
But I don't think we can give it to you. A client has to give it to you from history.
Yeah, I'll leave that to the clients then,
Okay.
if they want to come up with one.
We have a challenge. We're gonna start a Scott nickname social media extravaganza. See if we can come up with some good names.
Yeah, I did bodybuilding for about 7 or 8 years. So
Yeah.
earned my pro card.
And just quit, drop the mic.
Did 2 pro shows, earned money at the first one.
Nice.
And then, basically too much time. It takes too much time away from family, and
You were grumpy as hell too when you were cutting weight.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good thing. We like non-lean Scott the hunter better.
I like being fat and happy too.
All right. So let's get to the meat of this. We're gonna talk about firearms, firearm safety. Some recent developments in Iowa law have impacted a little bit of some hunting regulations. So we're gonna talk about those. Why don't you give us some background though on your hunting and your involvement with firearm usage and that kind of thing? Because this is one topic I don't know jack about, which is kind of fun for me.
So, growing up in Osage, I didn't do really any hunting other than maybe going out and shooting some pigeons with my BB gun as a kid. But my dad deer hunted, my dad pheasant hunted. It's just something that I wasn't really into. I was more, I rustled. And so my time was spent running, rustling, especially during the fall and winter months.
You have a history of being underfed, grumpy, and miserable in your activities.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So now you get into hunting.
I got into hunting about 7 or 8 years ago. A buddy of mine from law school took me out to his family farm and for my first turkey hunt, killed the turkey, and I've been hooked on turkey hunting ever since. That's my jam. I'd rather turkey hunt than anything else. I like being able to call turkeys in and stuff like that, but I do deer hunt. I pheasant hunt a little bit when I can. And last year was my first year going out west. I went out to Montana elk and bear hunting and ended up getting an elk out there. So
So your first time out west elk hunting, and it wasn't just, and this is one thing I'll say, I have a lot of respect for guys that are able to do this, and I have to give you a compliment for this, but that takes a lot of work. It wasn't just elk hunting sitting in a tree stand waiting for a big thing to go by and shoot it, right?
No, it was bow hunting, so you're out in the rut, which is cool because elk are bugling, you get to hear them, and then you basically chase them. So up, down, mountains, ridges.
On ATVs?
No, walking.
Oh.
Carrying your bow and a heavy backpack, and we'll be putting in about anywhere from 10 to 14 miles of hoofing it a day, chasing elk.
And
so,
you got one on your first hunt?
Yeah, the very last day. That's
not very common, is it?
No, I think they say for bow hunting, on average, it's about somewhere around 12% of guys who actually kill an elk while they're out there bow hunting, and to draw with basically no points, because there's point accumulation and all that stuff gives you better odds of drawing a tag. So I kind of figured it was somewhere, if you figure in the averages of actually drawing a tag and then killing one, somewhere around 5-6%, something like that.
You better not go out again. You're just going to be nothing but life of disappointment.
Well, the plan's I didn't draw an elk tag this year, but the plan is to go out here in about 3 weeks for some black bear hunting.
With a bow?
No, I'll be rifle hunting that.
Oh, you would be a lot tougher if you took it with a bow.
Well, I bow hunted it last year, but I feel much safer with a rifle.
Well, I won't call you a sissy, but I might call you a sissy. All right, so let's get to it. Hunting, firearms.
Yep.
In your experience, and you field most of those calls, you handle most of those cases that come into our office. If we had to go through things and say, hey, listen, we got to narrow this field down and say there's maybe 5 really big things that people need to understand or should understand as hunting season is starting to unfold and starting to ramp up. Because every year you hear about somebody gets popped by a fellow hunter somehow, some way, gets shot or tagged with something out in, usually it's public land somewhere.
Yep.
What do we need to know? What do people need to know as they're getting fired up, as they're making sure everything's working and getting their dogs ready and ready to get out there and get after it?
First and foremost is not necessarily on the real legal side, but safety. If you're pheasant hunting or hunting deer in a firearm season where it's required that you have blaze orange. Make sure you have the right amount of blaze orange on. Always see beyond what you're shooting at. And some guys I've been out on public land and had guys aim guns at me because they didn't see what I was. Always want to make sure that you're able to see where your projectile's going beyond what you're necessarily aiming at.
So I got a stupid question. Blaze orange, you got to wear blaze orange as you're doing what? Bird hunting, deer hunting?
Yeah, deer hunting and shotgun season. It's not required in archery or for turkey hunting.
Can deer see the orange? Like, are they?
From what I've read, they see in shades of gray.
Okay.
So the orange maybe shows up a little bit as a brighter shade of gray, but I've never had it really be an issue. I've sat on the ground in shotgun season and had deer walk up to within 5-6 yards of me.
Well, let's be honest, they can't see a freaking car coming down the road at them honking its horn with 2 headlights.
The headlights blind them, but.
Oh, well, maybe turn off. No, we can't do that. Okay. So, all right. So, vest up.
Vest up. Make sure, especially with the, if you're walking to your spot or, if you're walking, pushing for deer or, pheasant hunting, guns on, safety. Obviously when you go to take a shot, make sure there's, you're looking beyond what you're shooting at, so you're not shooting somebody else or shooting at a building or and somebody's livestock.
I got a great story about that. about looking past what you're shooting. This group deer hunting thing during shotgun season, I think, can get messy pretty quick, just from what I know about it, where you got a group that's pushing and then somebody and a couple that are sitting to take the deer as they run out of the woods. My brother-in-law actually had a hunter put a slug through his house, through his living room. In fact, to a point where had he been sitting there, had he not, it can't come to Drake's hockey game, it went right above his recliner and into the wall where his melon would have been. And they hunted him down. That was out in Warren County. He called it. His windows were busted open, slugs in his house, and sheriff's office was able to track those people down. But man, that's scary.
Yeah, I've done some of the party hunting before too, and I'm not a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather sit in a tree stand with a bow. But I've had a couple of times where the guys, they don't necessarily see where you're at, and bullets start whizzing above your head and you can hear it whistle. I just laid down on the ground.
Well, it's kind of like it's like war zone, but it's like it's a common theme for a lot of what we've talked about all the way through each episode is be aware. Like you're carrying something that can and you're using a device that can end somebody's life with a simple mistake. Be aware, be responsible, be alert, and look out for. Don't be that person on the front page with the hunting accident, wondering why you're ending up getting hauled in for reckless use of a firearm.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing for safety too, for guys getting up in trees, bow stands, stuff like that, wear your safety harness, wear have your safety rope. Guys every year fall out of tree stands because they don't have the safety rope. I highly recommend one of those, especially if your stands have been there for a while, because I've seen
those things fall.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty rickety ones with guys in them, and you're like, I don't know how the heck he's staying up there. But
okay. So check your equipment, make sure that you're checking each box before you're going out there, just to make sure you get to come back alive and the animals don't take you out. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Other things, as far as legality-wise, make sure you got your proper licensing, proper tags. Every year.
So help me with this, because fishing, you get a fishing license for the most part, unless you're getting a trout stamp. You get a fishing license, you go out, you catch a fish, you just make sure it's within the regulations, and you're done.
Yep.
How is it different in hunting, and what do we need to know about the hunting licenses, tags, and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so here in Iowa, you buy your hunting and or fishing license. You then have to pay the habitat fee. That allows you to hunt basically small game. You can hunt pheasants, you can hunt rabbits, squirrels.
So you have to have a license to hunt squirrels, rabbits, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
You have to have a general hunting license.
Okay.
And then
even in your backyard with a BB gun?
Legally, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
It depends, nuisance stuff, but yeah, I mean, for hunting, you could get in trouble for that.
Okay.
But then, to hunt turkeys, which there's the spring season and then there's a fall season, you have to have a turkey tag. You have to specially purchase that. For the spring, there's 5 seasons if you count youth season. But you can buy a tag for first, second, or third season, or fourth. But then if you want a second, you have to buy another 4th season tag.
So these tags, are you limited on where you can take an animal from? Because here's my thought. I'm not a hunter. I'm not a firearms guy. They scare me. But turkeys are all over the place around Lake Panorama. I don't understand what's so hard about shooting these things, because they run in front of my car every time. Can I take a billy club and go get myself a Thanksgiving dinner? Well, if I gotta get a tag?
Yeah, you could certainly try with a billy club if you want.
I'd chase them down.
But my experience is that they run pretty fast, and then if you get them really spooked, they'll fly.
Okay, but so are there limitations on locations where hunting can take place? And does it depend bow, firearm, billy club?
So Yes, yes, and no. I guess is kind of the answer. It depends on what you're wanting to hunt, where you're wanting to hunt, all that type of stuff. But say, like for turkeys in the spring, you buy a tag that is good for anywhere in the state of Iowa.
As long as you have permission.
As long as you have permission or you're on public hunting land, stuff like that. You can kill, you could buy a tag in, there's just general. You can buy a tag here in Des Moines, like I do, and then go up to northern Iowa, and that's where I typically hunt turkeys.
Okay.
In the fall, it's different with turkeys because there's zones, and each zone has a quota. So there's only a certain number of turkeys that can be killed in the fall with a firearm. There is no quota if you're hunting them with a bow. So
you'd be tough if you can do that. That would be impressive. Have you gotten that yet?
Yeah, I've killed turkey with a bow.
Okay, so you're moving up in my world.
I use the big decapitator arrowheads. So they got about 3.5 blades on them, and if you hit them in the neck, you do a good enough shot, it'll just cut their head clean off.
Did you do that?
I did not.
No. Well,
I shot mine from 50 yards.
We'll call that a B+. Okay. So you have to figure out what zone
you want to hunt in, and
once
then,
you get your tag, does that change?
No.
Okay.
You buy a tag, you have to tell them exactly what zone you're wanting to hunt in because that goes towards the quota.
Okay, so there's a quota of tags that they give out for those zones as well.
Correct.
Okay.
So like when I go up to northern Iowa, I think this year they had 200 tags total, and I bought my tag the first day because by the time I bought mine, it had gone from 200 down to 85 already.
Okay. And so that's dependent on. If you can whack things with a bow, you're pretty much good wherever you want to go.
Pretty much, yeah. Because you can get a tag, and then you can. I've never actually bought a fall bow only tag, so I don't know if those still go by the zone. I would assume they do, because you still have to kill it in that zone.
And so some restrictions would be centered around use of the firearm in hunting, because you can't obviously discharge a firearm in city limits, that kind of thing. But a bow, like if I'm sitting in the backyard at Lake Panorama and gobble gobble goes by, if I'm good enough with a bow and I have the tag, can you take it?
Depends on city ordinances and all that type of stuff. In the town I live in, it's not illegal to shoot a bow in town, so
sit on your back porch.
I could sit on my back porch and shoot the rabbits if I wanted to.
Do it.
But as far as that goes by city ordinances, whether or not you can just shoot a bow in town or whatnot. As far as guns, there are certain areas that would even be considered within city limits in certain places that you can, they do allow hunting. So, like in the Des Moines area here, they have tags in the urban areas that you can get for deer.
So we see them all the time in the Clive Trail.
Yep.
They have the special harvesting. There's guys that park their pickups right over the bike path, and they sit there and.
Yep.
You just snipe deer with your bow in that area.
Yep. Yeah, you got to get a special tag for it, but
you got to prove that you're accurate enough with the damn thing, so a jogger doesn't get hit or a bicycle doesn't get hit.
Again, on that one, I've not really looked into that. I know and I think Iowa, they have an archery safety class.
Okay.
But out west, like Montana, where I hunted, you have to either take an archery safety course.
Makes sense.
In order to get an archery tag, or you can show a prior, or you can provide them with the information of a prior bow hunting tag from another state.
Oh, good. So in other words, you got to at least have some experience, some education, some ability before you run out and start zinging arrows.
Yeah, and you have hunter safety course that you have to take.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to take that. You can actually, depending on your birth date, you can do it online, or you can do it in person.
We'll jump ahead. So you got your tag. You have a successful hunt. What are some requirements then? It seems complicated, or it seems like there's a lot of steps that you have to do. Maybe it's just me looking out there, but what are some things that people have to do once you take the animal before you move or transport it that can get people in trouble?
Yeah. So again, you got to have your tags. So with with deer, there's antlerless in areas. That's kind of the same way as the fall turkey. There's quotas depending on the county. So first things first, you have to have your own tag. You cannot carry somebody else's tag for them. Even if you're party hunting in the shotgun 1 or 2 season, you have to carry your own tag. With party hunting, it's a little bit different than, say, bow. With bow hunting, you shoot your deer, you go track it, you find it. You have to tag that within either 15 minutes of finding it, before moving it, or before doing any processing, that type of stuff.
So really, before you take your little trophy picture, you should probably tag that son of a gun, because you're going to be moving it to get your right pose, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So get it tagged, tag it properly.
What's a proper tag?
So the tag has your transport tag, and then you have the other portion of the tag when you call it in and fill out your numbers and all that. You get your number back from the DNR, your confirmation number. You have to fill that out. But on an antlerless deer, you tag it on the leg.
Okay.
You basically just run a little notch in between the bone and the tendon. Run your tag through there. It's a sticker, so
Okay.
you just fold it over itself. On a buck or on an antlered deer, you have to put it on the antlers. You're supposed to put it on the main beam between between 2 points. On a turkey, it goes on a leg.
Okay.
So those are the only ones that you really need a tag for, as far as kind of the big hunting that we have here. Other thing is, again, with moving the deer, you're not supposed to move the deer until you tag it. However, if it's in a waterway or in a bush or something like that, or if you're, for some reason you have imminent safety issues, you can move it out in order to be able to tag it.
Okay, so there's some reasonableness to it, safety and practicalities of it. So you get it tagged, you get it moved. What are some things that you've seen that people stumble on? Or we see these news reports of trophy buck taken down in Adair County, only to have the DNR come in and snag it, take it, try to forfeit it, and there's a big hoop-de-loop over that.
Yeah.
What are some mistakes people are making on those?
Big things I've been seeing, either not having a tag, hunting out of season, poaching.
Okay.
You'll see every once in a while guys will shoot a deer with a shotgun or using the wrong weapon, using a rifle, when it's archery only or something like that. Not tagging the deer or turkey, not calling it in.
So what do you have to do what's this call-in thing? Like when I catch a fish, I don't have to call anybody, do I?
No.
Okay, so what's this call-in requirement for hunting?
So on tagged animal, like turkey and deer, you have until midnight the following day from which you've killed it to call it in. And there's a number with the DNR that you can call in, and then it basically runs through, you punch in your tag, or you have to punch in your information, so it pulls up your tag, and then let them know, like on a turkey, whether it was you have to let them know how long the spurs were, stuff like that.
So they're keeping pretty good statistics of animals that get taken.
As long as you call them in, they're keeping statistics.
But you're required to call it in.
You're required to call it in.
Okay.
Not that everybody necessarily does, because we see some of these violations.
Somebody takes one of those Boone and Crockett records and tags it, takes their pictures, bragging about it, put it up in local Casey's, and doesn't call it in. That's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how. Social media is how most guys are actually getting caught.
Okay.
Posting pics.
So what's the penalty then? So you don't call it in.
Well, it depends on what the violation is. Other things that there can be is, you don't call it in. But depending on what your violation is, you're looking at a fine. There is also, depending on the animal, its size. For antlered deers, they have a civil penalty, and it can range. It's depending on the rack size in inches. So don't quote me on it, but I think it's at 150 inches. If it's less than that, there's a civil penalty of between $2,000 and $10,000. Okay. If it's above 150, it's from $4,000 to $20,000.
So it gets expensive in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Just make the damn call.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. And also with hunting violations, they can they can seize and forfeit your property. So basically anything used in the taking of or transporting, illegal transporting of wild game. So
your truck.
I've seen guys have their guns taken. They take, obviously they confiscate the animal. Guys have had trucks taken. Your weapons, your gear, all of that stuff can be taken and forfeited if you're found, to be in violation of the hunting laws.
That was always our big fear in Hawaii fishing and night diving. We go diving at night and take fish and lobster because they're out at night. But if you take a lobster out of season and the DNR rolls up on you as you're walking down the beach and you got a lobster in your bag, everything would get taken. Your vehicle that took you there, everything like that gets forfeited. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it can be, and there's also, this is kind of really convoluted, but if you get into where there's interstate commerce involved, so somebody from out of state comes in and they hunt with a guide or something, or they pay for some sort of guide service, now interstate commerce is involved. Or you shoot your big, 16-point buck and you take it down to Missouri to your favorite taxidermist down there. Interstate commerce.
You're crossing state lines, and that means the federales get involved, right?
Federales get involved.
It's a federal offense.
Yep, and then you got serious issues.
Yeah, you don't want FBI or who would handle that with the feds?
Wildlife, fishing, game
management.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a good call to get.
No, and you get the call from a lot of times what we're seeing with some of these where they can move it federally. You may have an argument on it, but do you really want to mess with it? Because that's kind of their, the DNR will use that and say, either you plead guilty to this state charge, or we'll send you over to the feds.
Do the feds really step in and
yes, they do.
Prosecute these cases?
Yes, they do.
Really?
And they're taken seriously.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So that's news to me. That's good to know. Hopefully they tagged my fish right that they're mailing from Alaska.
So yeah, those are the other big ones that I'm seeing is electronic communication.
Okay, tell me about this, because when we went over this in prep, I was like, this is interesting. You don't think about hunting in the digital age, but there are issues that come up with cell phone use. It's a common theme in all of our episodes: cell phone use, but hunting.
Yeah. So and another one that kind of leads into kind of the next topic we're going to talk about is knowing where you're at and property boundaries. But there's a lot of good technology as far as apps, hunting apps to show you boundary lines. I mean, and it'll use your GPS. It'll show you exactly where you're on property lines, stuff like that. But where people get into problems is you're out hunting with your buddies and stuff like that. Hey, I just saw turkey over here, or hey, you should swing around to this spot because I'm seeing a bunch of turkeys.
Well, it only makes sense. You don't want to call them on the phone and be like, hey, got a 30-point buck going your way. You just nice little quiet text. You can't do that?
No, illegal. So it is illegal to use either a one-way or two-way communication, electronic communication device. So cell phone, texting, calling, walkie-talkies, so no niners in there.
Oh.
Anything like that.
Smoke signals?
Well, that's not electronic.
Yeah, okay.
But you cannot use those devices to either provide detail or provide location, direction of wild game or fur-bearing animals, or to manipulate the movements of other hunters.
Okay, so I come home from sitting in my tree stand all day. I didn't get my shot. and I text you, Scott, there was a huge buck at this place at this point, but I could never get it close enough to me to take a shot. Is that a violation?
Well, and I mean, I would say that's probably not, but there are gray areas here. For instance, you know, if you and I are hunting the same spot and you're like, hey, I saw.
Don't shoot me.
But hunting different days.
Okay.
You know, and you're sitting in the stand and you text, you know, and you take pictures of the deer that are walking by, you send them to me. Arguably, that would be a violation because you're sending communication of the location.
What about trail cameras?
That's where it's kind of, you know, again, trail cameras right in Iowa right now are legal. There are other states that are making them illegal, or at least trying to. Kind of not a fair chase type deal.
I get that.
But yeah, that's where there's kind of some gray area in a lot of these hunting regs. You know, like youth hunting as well has kind of some gray areas where it says every youth shall be accompanied by an adult hunter, a licensed adult hunter. Well, is that, you know, I have 2 kids. If they want to go hunt and it's a pain in the butt to try to get them to agree on who's going when and what day and all that type of stuff, and usually feelings get hurt and stuff like that.
Fighting over who gets to go, Dad.
Can I take both kids with me if they have, you know, if they each have a gun, or if we're only taking one gun? And that's where it comes down to, you really got to talk to your DNR officer, because I have, on that issue specifically, I've talked to 3 different DNR officers, gotten 3 different interpretations. And so you want to check with your local DNR guy to see what his position on before you go hunt.
Yeah, you don't want to get in
so you know how they're interpreting it, and then at least in that zone or that county, you can follow his interpretation, and then if you go to a different one, you want to check with them.
So, but I think the safest way then with electronic communication is during a hunt, don't communicate back and forth with other hunters or other people that, regarding location of animals, movement of animals. Just don't text. Listen, you're out of nature. Put your damn phone away. Use it to figure out what we're going to talk about right here at the end, boundaries of property that can get you in hot water as well, right?
Yep. So obviously, you know, if you're hunting public land, you got to be on the public land property. You can't go on to somebody else's private property.
Yeah, not everything has a fence, so how do you know?
Right. You know, public land has signs. There'll be usually the green signs with the white lettering, tells you it's public hunting, and those will be put up on the boundaries. If there's no fences, stuff like that, you know, on those boundaries, that's the best way to tell, outside of using your cell phone, using one of these apps. And the DNR has its own app. It's actually pretty slick. For the most part, you can purchase your licenses and your tags right on there. They have an atlas showing boundaries of public land in Iowa, public hunting land in Iowa. So you can use that. You can pay for services like OnX is an app that shows property lines. It tells you who owns the property on there. So if you were so inclined, you could go try to talk to the landowner themselves to get permission, that type of thing.
Okay, so I got a question then. The property boundaries, is that, so you shoot a deer takes off, or you shoot a ditch pigeon, a pheasant, and it takes off and lands in somebody else's property or ends up dying in another property. Can you cross boundaries to go retrieve game, or is it where you're located? Can you shoot across property boundaries, or how does that work?
So you cannot shoot I mean, this is more of a issue that's kind of coming up out west of crossing boundaries, and
but yeah,
whether you corner hop and stuff like that.
I'm standing on public land. I see a deer that's on the other side of the green fence or the green sign. Can I blast it?
No.
Okay.
Unless you have permission to hunt that private property.
Fair. All right.
However, if you're on that property line, you shoot a deer that's on your side, it crosses over and it expires. It is not it is an exemption from the trespassing statute
Yep.
for the person who shot it to cross the property line, and I would recommend going the most direct
Yep.
route on and off to retrieve that animal, but you have to go unarmed.
So what if it's like, a black bear and it's not completely dead yet? You got to go unarmed?
Yes, unless you get permission from the property owner.
Ooh. Does a knife count?
Yes. That would
So you can't go finish an animal if it's on the other technically on somebody else's property. It can be laying there, dying slowly, painfully, and
if it
mooing
were
or
a bear,
mowing.
I wouldn't recommend going with a knife anyway. I wouldn't go all revenant,
You're
but
Davy Crockett. You're Davy Crockett.
yeah, I mean, by the letter of the law, you have to go unarmed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you just best sitting there waiting there and watch it die, and
Ew.
as much as that seems unethical.
I couldn't do that.
But otherwise, you go ask permission from the property owner, and technically they're supposed to let you go do that, but every once in a while you get somebody who's
It's not gonna let you.
not gonna argue with you and not let you go. Best then to just probably get DNR, give them a call and have them come out and see if they can help kind of cool the situation down.
And that's part of their job. So we got to wrap it up. So if we're going to really wrap everything up as it relates to hunting and what we've talked about here, first things first is always be aware, be safe.
Yep.
Take the precautions that you need to take to make sure that you get to come home after a successful hunt. 2, make sure you have the proper tags and apply the tags at the earliest possible opportunity, right?
Yep.
3,
Call it in.
Call it in. 4, no taxis on locations. No cheating. No cheating.
Yep.
You're going to go hunting, be a sport about it.
Yep.
And then the last one is know the property boundaries, no shooting across boundaries. And when in doubt, it sounds like when in doubt, call the DNR.
Yeah.
That's their job. That's what they're there for, right?
The other big thing, DNR puts out the handy dandy regulation manual. Best thing you can do is read through this.
Okay.
This is not all the laws and regulations by any means, but it gives you a good starting point. And then if you have questions on things, again, reach out to your local DNR guy, because like I said, sometimes interpretations are different.
Yep.
But you can always contact the head DNR main office, and they are willing to provide some guidance on things as long as it's not a pending case.
Right.
But those are kind of the big tips that I can give on this type of stuff. These are the things that I'm running into the most often.
Perfect. Well, appreciate you taking the time. Bring on fall, bring on hunting season, and I'll drink my coffee to that since it's the morning today. But appreciate your time, and we'll be back with a not-to-be-missed new episode of Do's and Don'ts with Donuts. We'll be right back.
We want to win. If we can't win, if we look at everything and those elements are met, all right, how do we mitigate and minimize the long-term consequences to somebody? That whether it's getting a charge reduced, whether it's getting a probation as opposed to prison, there's a number of different levels on that scale if Plan A doesn't pan out.
So, welcome back. We are ready for a phenomenal Do's and Don'ts with Donut. We just talked that over. This is number 5 of these, right?
It is.
All right. Is it going?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh.
It's related.
Well,
I think it's
geez,
good.
that's-
It's good for a lawyer's brain. It
Okay.
might be something that people are interested
Well,
in too.
our job is to make this interesting and entertaining. So
I think we can do it.
All right, let's do this.
I
Go.
have to make sure there's quite a few swear words in here, so I'm going to try my best to.
Good news.
not-
You can swear
Okay.
because it's
fine.
somebody else's words. It's just like in court. You can do
Okay.
it. Knock it out.
So the title is Maintenance Came in Unannounced and I Pulled a Gun on Them. I was working from home and I heard a knock, looked through the peephole, and no one was there. So I went back to work and heard another knock. As I was leaving my room to go to the door, it was open and 2 men I've never seen before are standing there. I very loudly tell them to leave and they just stare at me. I yell, "Get the fuck out right now." And they again didn't say or do anything. One last time, I yell, "I am armed, get the fuck out right now," and nothing. So I run back, grab my gun, and point it down the hallway, telling them to get the fuck out. This time, they close the door and start saying they're maintenance. I call the office to try to confirm that they're maintenance and get a big ol' "I don't know, they could be." Anyways, I go out to apologize and beg them for forgiveness and ask if I can take them to lunch or anything to make things right. Obviously, they're pissed, tell me to rightfully fuck off, and they need to report this. This has happened before, but I recognize the people who are at the door and they loudly announce themselves before coming in. At this point, I don't think they're calling the cops, but I'm freaking out over getting evicted or something. What steps can I take to make sure my ass is covered, such as documenting and stuff like that? Is there anything I can do to make sure my property manager calls me before maintenance comes in?
That's good.
I know.
I mean, it's not naked in Walmart.
It's not.
Or Rambo knives on a bicycle, but
Or
that,
LSD on a bicycle.
I think this one is practical.
It is, because it's something that applies to a lot of people, obviously,
Yeah.
in some sort of rental agreement.
landlord-tenant.
Landlord-tenant law
Jeez.
101
Yep.
is, unless it's an emergency, they need to give you notice before they come in.
So yeah. I mean, let's start there.
Yep.
Start there. You just got through dealing with landlord
I did.
tenancy as in law school, and then now you got your own place. You don't got to worry about that.
Yep.
But the first problem with this is what?
They are supposed to give you notice within 24 hours if they are going to have someone come in because of reasons like this.
So landlords can't just roll on into your apartment or into your rental house and say, "Hey, I'm here to fix the sink," or "Hey, I'm here to do an inspection." Can't
Nope.
do that, right?
Nope.
Okay. And if they do, that's trespassing.
Yep.
And it's also a breach of the contract.
Yep.
Okay. So problem number one with this is two dudes entering a house. I see Pulp Fiction in my head.
Yeah.
You know, when they walk in, where they just standing there in the doorway.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're here to hit you or to fix your sink.
And it's one of those things that you'd think it's so easy for them to give you 24 hours notice. Like, they can put a piece of paper under your door. They can email you. They don't even have to make sure that you actually are understanding that someone is going to come into your apartment the next day or your rental. But it's something they don't do. I lived in apartments downtown in Iowa City, and I had it 2 different times where someone, like a random man, would walk into my apartment.
Well, that's a huge creep factor to begin with.
It's terrifying, especially Iowa City. It's like known that people like break into people's apartments.
Yeah.
And I would be like, one of them I remember was like, I think the Friday or Saturday before Thanksgiving break. So I think they like planned these out to where most people are going to be gone. And my bedroom, like, you walk in and you could see into my bedroom, and I was just in my bedroom, and this guy opens the door, and I like sit up and look over, and he's like, "Oh, I feel like I'm like violating your like privacy," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah," like,
Well, and it's like they can call. I mean,
Yeah.
they have your phone number on the
Yeah.
rental agreement. So I'd say these guys are lucky they didn't get shot.
I think so too. Especially standing there and not saying anything. Like, if you're actually maintenance, say, "Hi, I'm here to do this," and just standing there is weird.
Well, and this, let's get right to the point, is this guy I don't see any basis to have any issues from a legal standpoint on his part.
No.
I mean, you don't have to have a permit to have a firearm in your house.
Nope.
He's not carrying it. In Iowa, if he felt threatened and felt like his life was threatened at that point in time, he could have whacked him.
Which, if random people walk into your house unannounced in the middle of the day and just stand there and look at you when you ask who they are, what they're doing,
Yeah, I'd probably
tell
shoot
them to
him.
get out. Yeah, I mean, that's terrifying.
I'm not a gun guy, but this is the right time when you probably want
Yeah.
a gun. Yeah. Okay.
In Iowa, you don't have to retreat.
Right.
I mean, he even like arguably tried to do that by telling them a few times, like, to de-escalate the situation before grabbing anything. But eviction, I mean,
You're in the right, though. You're not.
Yeah.
He's not violating the
No.
terms of anything.
no.
Yeah.
And the landlord's in violation. You're not going to be criminally charged. One thing I was curious about, is this something that if you had a client that had done something like this, someone calls, is this something where you tell them to report it to police immediately?
100%. So this is amazing. This actually just happened last week.
Okay.
I got woken up at 11 o'clock from an old client calling saying, "I think this person who acts like they're a maintenance person here in the in the apartment complex is in or has been into my apartment, they just they act like for whatever reason, there's weird people out there that
That's like the Iowa City people.
Yeah, maintenance or whatever, I can just walk into people's apartments. That's the dumbest thing anybody could do, because you're going to get shot at some point or bonked on the head with a billy club. But what do? I said, you call the police right now and report it, because to the extent that they are associated with the apartment complex and are in your house or in your apartment, that's a violation of the rental contract, and they're trespassing.
Yeah.
And in the event that it's not those people, you damn well want law enforcement involved and know that somebody's breaking and entering into your property. Yes, 1,000% first thing I would do after getting a gun pointed at the guy would be to call 911 and report it.
Yeah. Especially if you call your landlord and they say, well, it could be. It could be maintenance. Not sure.
First call should not be to landlord. First call should be to law enforcement, because that then documents it.
And protects you if they end up calling back later and
100%.
saying something else happened.
First call should be to that, because if you haven't received notice, you don't know who these people are. Very first thing you do, random stranger in my house, A, protect yourself, protect your family. B, get law enforcement involved right away.
Make a report.
Yeah. So I think to sum up this do's and don'ts with donut is, do protect yourself.
Yep.
Do report it right away.
Yep.
Don't rent from people that are going to invade your privacy and
Seriously.
disrespect the very contract that gives you the right to live there.
And stop talking to these maintenance people and the property manager after something like this. Talk to law enforcement or talk to a lawyer, because you don't want, if you haven't called law enforcement right away, your statements, you don't want them twisted and
to this
all of
guy,
those things.
Don't buy them lunch.
Yeah, absolutely not. And also, don't renew your lease.
No. Do move.
Yeah, do move.
Beautiful. That was phenomenal. That's a great one. That's practical use that I don't think
is.
people really think through. So for the 5th episode of Do's and Don'ts and Donuts, well done.
Thank you.
Do continue.
Maybe next time.
Do continue bringing these good ones.
I will.
All right, that's all for us, episode 6. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
We can't change the past, but we will change your future. GRL Law. Thanks for tuning in to GRL Raw. Check us out at grllaw.com.